My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Make this new school year an opportunity for your kids to learn important life skills with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely, while parents keep an eye on kids' money habits. Greenlight also helps families get into their fall routine with a chores feature that lets parents assign chores and pay kids allowance when they check them off. Get your first month free at greenlight.com/listen. greenlight.com/listen.
Pursuing your future doesn't end at 40. In fact, it may mark the beginning of knowing who you are, what you're capable of, and what you really want. But knowing what's next and how to get there can be a challenge, especially when old narratives play on repeat. Rhode is here to share stories so that you can consider your possibilities, pursue your purpose, and move into your future with intention. I'm your host, Netta Jones, and we're here to listen, learn, and liberate dreams one episode at a time. Well, hello, Liberty listeners. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Rhode. Today, you guys get to hear from Annie Kantor of Modern Metal. Annie, we're so excited to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about what Modern Metal is.
Well, thank you for having me, Netta. I'm thrilled to be here. Modern Metal is a company that I founded almost 10 years ago now, in 2015. We design laser-cut metal grills, panels, and a variety of things made from metal for architects and designers in commercial and residential spaces.
Wow. And so how did this come to be? Where did the thought or the idea for Modern Metal come from?
Well, this is exactly how it happened. I live in an old house in Oakland, California, and we were in the midst of a remodel, and we had a big duct in our foyer, and I was very involved with every detail of the house. And I was scouring antique markets and stores for a beautiful old brass register that could fit in this, that would be in keeping with the home's aesthetic. And I could not find anything the right size. So something made me remember a textile that I had designed. I'm a textile designer by training years ago. And I decided it would be cool to translate that textile design into metal and design my own register. So
like one does.
I really don't know what made me think of that, but I did. And I remember at the time my house was filled with boxes. I didn't have a computer or nothing. So I had graphite paper that I bought, and I sketched out the design with a pencil and graphite paper and sent it around the country. I just Googled cut metal. I didn't even know the term laser cut. And that's how it started.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
And what made you, after creating one for your home, which I applaud the creativity, but one would say, okay, I'm done. What made you take it to the next level?
Well, our architect, John Malick, looked at it and he said, hey, this is really cool. You could sell these. So it was his idea. And I thought, oh, I guess I could. And I spent the next 2 years exploring that idea and researching and understanding metal fabrication. And it took me 2 years to get to a point where I felt comfortable putting my name on the back of a product and selling it.
And what was the 2 years about for you? Was it manufacturing these things, designing these things, installing them? What was the thing that you needed to sort of have peace with before you could move forward?
I needed to know that the quality was high. I learned quickly what these are and how they're made and who can make them. But I wanted to make sure the quality was high enough that I felt comfortable putting my name behind it. I needed to learn how to design in metal. I invested in a design program for my computer. I actually used money that my grandmother, who was an artist, left me when she died. And I bought a textile design program. And so a lot of that time was spent really figuring out the ropes. What do I need to do to get a business started? What are the tools that I need to do this creatively? And then also from a business standpoint, how to start a business.
And what had you done prior to this, besides remodeling your house?
Well, I graduated from Rhode Island School of Design with a degree in textile design in 1994.
Uh-huh.
And after that, I worked in the commercial textile industry in New York City for several years with the great icons of the textile industry, Hazel Siegel, Michael Maharam. It was very exciting. But it was at RISD that really formulated and set such a strong foundation for me in how I work today, because RISD taught me how to view my work objectively with a critical eye. So that to me is a gift, because now I'm able to look at a design, and if somebody critiques it or not, I don't take anything personally at all. It's like, that's the very easy part for me. So I was trained, and I know when a design works or when it doesn't work. So whether that's applied to textiles or metalwork, it's consistent across the board.
And had you been working up until that time in textile design? Like, were you leaving textile design to now go into these laser cut metal fabrications?
Well, I worked, after I graduated from RISD, I went to New York City, and I worked for Maharam, and I was textile designer, and I was hired to be the panel fabric designer. And I don't know if you know what panel fabric is. Most people probably
You're
don't.
about to educate us, I can tell.
Panel fabric is that fabric that is on a cubicle when you are in a big office building.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So I think it's interesting that it's sort of an overlooked detail that most people don't notice, in the same way air vents are details that most people don't notice. But now I notice both a lot.
So with this degree, with the extensive experience you had in textile design, what made you decide that this was going to be your entrepreneurial venture? What was it, simply because the contractor said you could really sell this, and you started to see a need for custom metalwork and thought, okay, I'm going to put my everything behind this and make a go at this?
It was very natural. I didn't actually give it that much thought. I just went for it.
Yeah.
I just thought, this is fun. This is really cool. This is a new and needed niche in the industry, because I know I couldn't find it for my own home. I'm going to do this. It was just so spontaneous. And then it blossomed, and you learn as you go.
Yes, you do learn as you go. Yeah.
You really learn as you go. But when I was at Maharam, I worked also as I was head of their custom design studio, where I had to travel around the country and work with architects and designers to design their custom fabrics. So I had a lot of skill from past experience, learning how to listen to what the customer needs, and a bit about sales too, working with these professionals.
Yeah.
And so I think that really guided me and gave me some confidence as I embarked on this crazy venture.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing when we look to our past to see what we were being groomed for in our future. Like, we had no idea. And probably at the time, maybe you loved sales, maybe you didn't like sales, but now it's probably built into what you are doing on a day-to-day, or at least what you had to do to get started. So take us through I have this idea. It takes me 2 years to feel confident in the quality of it. Now I'm ready to go. I know who's going to manufacture this. How do you get it to market and actually grow this idea?
That's a good question. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know how to do this, but I was talking to friends, to artists, to photographers. What do I do to start a business? How can I sell this? I really had no idea. And a friend of a friend introduced me to a woman named Beth Dickstein. Mm-hmm. And I flew to visit her in New York, and she said, you need a booth at ICFF, the International Contemporary Furniture Fair in New York City. This was in February. She got on the phone. She got me a booth right there, which was crazy because the show was in May. And that is how I started. That is how I officially launched and grew the business because it was my formal introduction, formal press release. This is modern metal. This is Annie Kantor. This is the product. And my booth was packed with people, and I couldn't even take a break to go. It was just me there. I couldn't even take a break to go to the restroom. It was so exciting.
Wow. And so the rest is history? Like you continued to do those sorts of shows?
I took a break from doing the shows. This is why, and it's one of those learning experiences. Because my background is design, I needed to learn more about running the financial business end of running a company. So I hired somebody named Lloyd Joseph Princeton, who I found, who specializes in advising designers about how to run their business. And I called him, and it was very expensive for me at the time. It was a big investment. But I said, you know what? I don't want any fancy, glossy manual of graphs or generic how-tos. I want to know exactly what I should do to help my company grow. What would you advise me to do? And he was amazing. He came and he said, he looked at how much I'm spending, and you spend a lot of money to go to ICFF every year, which is what I was doing.
Sure.
And he said, how much money are you making from ICFF? And I said, well, it's priceless. It's priceless. I have so many people, and I get to show off. It's so glamorous. It's exciting. You're in the buzz showing off your designs. And he said, but how much money have you made as a result of ICFF? And the answer was not nearly enough to warrant me spending the money on ICFF. So he said, pull your contract from ICFF this year, which was terrifying to me because that's all I knew how to do is go to ICFF, and it got me from year to year. And he said, and hire a design assistant instead. And I did.
Wow.
I did, and it changed the course of my business. And it taught me not only to trust people. His advice was scary for me, and I followed it. But it was a wonderful, it broadened everything. So I had a design assistant, and I was able to focus on different areas.
We should all have that. We should all have a person like that in our lives as we're starting a business. But tell me very practically, so going to ICFF was probably a stamp of approval in that industry as well. Like if you're there, you've sort of made it. So to some degree, it was a great first start. But then when there was a realization that it wasn't making that much money, and maybe it was more of a PR or a marketing push than it was actually a moneymaker, he suggests that you hire this assistant. Does that free you up to go out and get new clients, or were you utilizing her in that way to be more of a sales channel?
I really got my hands dirty. I wore so many different hats. We were reaching out cold calls to design firms in San Francisco. I was collecting lists of designers. I was going to networking events to meet people in the industry. I was going to professional, what are those chapters, B.N.I, trying to network any way I could. I was talking to friends. I started even making grills. I remember I made a piece for a friend's house for free because I needed a picture. I needed pictures of my my product installed. And what makes me realize that I've come a long way is when weekly I have to decide what project I'm going to feature. I have many, many pictures of projects, but I remember at the beginning getting one picture of this installed was a big deal, not a rendering, but a real install. So it was hands-on work, reaching out to designers, to architects, getting feedback, making things for free, selling your first project. It was just legwork. The design assistant was helping me organize my studio, ordering samples, making sample boxes, lots and lots of details.
So for you, it actually catapulted you into doing the work that was connecting you to people at the trade show. Now you were going out and being proactive. And my suspicion is those relationships, they go deeper because at a trade show, you meet so many people, right? So it probably helped you to stand out a little bit by doing some of that groundwork locally, especially.
It did, and I'm still working at it. It's very hard. I do sales presentations where I was at the time, I remember lugging like 80 pounds of metal around, which was ridiculous. Now I've switched to aluminum and I have smaller. I figured it out and I I use the computer. I don't have to bring every huge, storyboard with me.
Right.
But yes, I work hard to develop these relationships, and I'm constantly working at it, introducing my product, making people aware that this is an element, a design element that they can think about in their designs. For example, I design a bathroom fan cover, and most people don't realize that they have this ugly manila colored plastic thing in their bathroom. It's in fancy hotels like the Ritz, Four Seasons. They're all over. And my goal is to change the landscape of what's out there and beautify it a bit. But I'm finding that architects and designers don't even think about it because it's just nothing they've ever thought about. So that's a challenge right there. I mean, I'm spending a lot of energy trying to point out, hey, you could improve this. This is what we're doing.
But once you change those minds, then the opportunity is sort of endless for you, right? So once you can convince them.
And some people, what I love are the return customers, because once they know, they know.
Yeah,
absolutely. You can't unsee it. You can't unsee it.
Yeah. Well, now as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, we have that one and we have that one. And yeah, they're disgusting. I mean, they're terribly boring. You don't want anybody to look up. You've spent all this money on a beautiful light fixture and then you've got this thing right next to it.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It makes sense. Our podcast is about women doing really cool things in their middle third. How has your approach to work changed at this stage of your life from when you were working in textiles earlier? Obviously, that was a more corporate setting. This is an entrepreneurial setting. But internally, what has changed for you when you think of your work and your approach to your work?
That's a really good question. I would like to say that I care less about what people think, but I'm still working on that. But I would say perspective and how to treat people. I think life and work experience has brought me to the point where I've learned how to be and how not to be with people. And so for me, it's all about relationships and how I'm realizing relationships are the most important aspect of what I do. It's what I value the most. I want a customer to be happy. I want my vendors to be happy. I want them to feel appreciated. I want my employees to feel valued and the customers to know I care. So I think now at this point in my life, I'm bringing these values that are important to me into the company.
Yeah.
I'm constantly telling my team, we're an all-women's team, and I'm always checking in. I want to make sure their load isn't too much, too stressful, because it's hard to know when you're delegating. Are you just overloading them? I've been on the receiving end of that where you're super stressed and have too much. And I always say to them, I want this job to be fun and rewarding. I don't want it to be a stressful job because we know what matters in life.
Yeah.
It's not an air vent. It's feeling that reward.
Did you know that the real cause of osteoporosis isn't bad genetics? It's not your age either. Bone loss is actually largely caused by low collagen levels. In fact, 90% of your bone mass is made out of collagen protein. The problem is, as we age, we produce less and less of it. Starting around the age of 30, we produce 1 to 2% less collagen every single year, which is why so many people struggle with bone density as they get older. So if you're over the age of 50, man or woman, supplementing with collagen is one of the most important things you can do to build stronger bones and joints. But here's the deal, not just any collagen product will do. There are 28 different types of collagen out there. Type 1 is what we need for bone density, and type 3 is crucial for muscle health. So if building stronger bones is something you care about, stop wasting your hard-earned money on inferior supplements and start adding more types 1 and 3 collagen into your diet. To begin your bone health journey, go to getnativepath.com/Liberty for a special 45% off discount for being a Liberty Rhode listener. Again, go to getnativepath.com/Liberty for a special 45% off just for listening. I had lunch earlier this week with a woman who cashed out and did quite well. And we were talking about if she would do it again. She's 51. So there's plenty of time if she wants to. And she said, coming up with an idea is easy. Coming up with what I could do next is easy. What's hard is creating culture. And that became the most important thing to us in our business, was creating culture, making sure that everybody, this was a food business, everybody from those who worked on the line to those who were in the back kitchen to those who we were purchasing, the farmers that we were working with, that everybody was part of a culture that we were creating. And that became the most important thing. But it was the hardest thing and also the most rewarding thing. And so you're speaking to that, like what really counts. And I think we see that life experience shows us that this is actually what matters, because people can turn out widgets no matter how beautiful they are. But creating a space where people who work with you and for you say, that's rewarding, that's life-giving to me, that's really something.
Yeah, I feel it with my fabricators. I make an effort to go visit them. I work with fabricators, laser cutters, and finishers around the United States. And I go to visit them to educate myself, but mostly to form the relationships, like the professional friendly relationships, because it's just so important to understand the talent behind what's going into these beautiful pieces. And they're so skilled. And so I think that has really helped. I think that's one thing that makes my company special, is that we have these relationships. Everybody I work with is somebody I'm choosing to work with for a certain reason, and they're people. I brought my kids to go visit our vendors so they can see, what happens. Who are these people behind these giant panels? This isn't just coming off of a machine. This is a person with skill working on it and packaging it with care. And anyway, it's a nice relationship.
And to be treated with such respect, no wonder they would want to build a long-standing relationship with you. That's really something. Thank you for sharing that. So you just said big panels. So when we first were hearing this story, we were focused on registers. We were focused on something on the floor that would cover, or a ceiling vent. But you're talking about big panels. Tell us about those big panels.
The company expanded to meet the needs of other projects, which were, now our metal patterns are seen wrapping buildings and adorning cabinetry and AV units and being creatively used as screen dividers, just in different applications, door inserts. So to me, this is when modern metal really became fun, because my background is in commercial design, and going large is definitely my comfort zone. So now I sell to both residential and commercial spaces, but I love both for different reasons, but the commercial is quite fun.
And just to be able to scale your work and the work of all these craftsmen that you're talking about is pretty special.
Yeah, I learn from my customers what they need, what they want, and that's how I've learned along with them. So can you do a door insert, a sliding door? And I thought, well, that's a cool idea. Let's see. And we can do it. So every step, every project, every customer, we get to grow with.
Yeah, I was going to say it sort of expands what you're capable of doing.
One thing that RISD ingrained in us was that a design is only strong if it's original, authentic, and it has meaning behind it. So that's how I approach design work now, is just because that's how I was trained. So I start with a pencil or a painting or pastels, and I sketch my ideas, and I have my inspiration and my story. I feel like I don't have to pretend that I'm authentic or original. I just am. I can't imagine it doing any other way.
What a gift to know that, to have been trained in that way, and for you to share that with us, that we can find whatever that is for us that is authentic to who we are. What's been the hardest part? You talked about the financial piece and that not being something that you had experience in. What has been the hardest part of both launching and growing or running the business?
I would definitely say it's the finance for me. It's knowing how to allocate and pace funds, because our timeline for projects is long. It's often 1 to 5 years. So I'm not always sure what's coming and what's not coming and how to spend that money. And I find myself, I kind of follow my gut instinct, and take chances. And sometimes I've made mistakes. I've made big mistakes, but I learn from all of them. So I remember I spent a lot of money a couple years ago trying to sell my product on Amazon, and you have to get a trademark, and you have to have an expert, and you have to do, I mean, there are so many hoops that you have to jump through to do this, but I was convinced this was the right thing. Yeah. And thousands of dollars later, it was not the right thing. But I learned from that. Every mistake, every financial investment that hasn't worked out has had a silver lining without a doubt. So I think that's the challenge and then the reward. With every challenge and with every learning experience, you gain something.
Sure. I think the willingness to take that risk or move forward and not worry about, is everyone going to be a winning decision, but everyone is worth trying, right? And
Absolutely.
what you will learn from that. I'm sure that the Amazon thing wasn't just, you didn't just learn about that particular marketplace. You learned something about marketplaces in general. Those opportunities to learn can only be opportunities if we take them.
That's right.
I know a lot of people who are just, they're so fearful of making a financial mistake or any kind of mistake in their business. And the result is a lack of growth or very, very slow growth.
Yeah, I really love what IKEA does in that they provide design to make it accessible to a lot of people. So I believe in that, changing the landscape of design and making it accessible to more people. But my product's expensive. Yeah. So it's expensive to make. So I'm constantly trying to bridge that. My solution was to have a ready-made line that is in stock so it's more affordable. And then I have the custom pieces, which are pricier pieces.
Would there ever be an opportunity to do something like that outside of an Amazon type thing, but with a partner who has, I'm thinking of in the design districts, there's like the tile shops and there's the hardware shops that has the faucets and the things like that. Could there ever be a line of modern metal pieces that people could purchase from there? Or do you already have those sorts of relationships?
I have explored that path. I've tried it, and I've tried several paths. Showrooms are beautiful, but it's just not, it doesn't really work for modern metal. And salespeople too. I've had salespeople representing my line in different places. And sometimes it depends on the salesperson.
Sure. But the point is that you're trying these things and you're learning. You're learning what works for modern metal. Who is the modern metal customer? What do they need to hear? What is the sales cycle? It could be that they're introduced to the brand, but it takes another year before they have an opportunity or a need for that, if you're working with architects or interior designers, for example. So it's another good lesson, another good nugget that you're sharing with us, that we just have to kind of keep at it, keep trying those things, and probably being surprised at what some of the opportunities are that you didn't think were opportunities at first. Anything like that was like, oh, that was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea that was a good path for us.
I noticed when I went, San Francisco has a showcase house every year. And when I first started, I went there and I stood with my postcards on press day hoping somebody would want to use modern metal, that I could donate modern metal to a room. And the last couple of years, I have not even advertised and people have come to me. So it feels like a milestone there. It just, This is many years. This is 10 years of doing this, but they're coming to me now. And now I'm actually getting to choose who I want to work with. Which I have to turn jobs away, unfortunately.
Yeah, but that's amazing.
It is wonderful. Yeah.
And 10 years. So the lesson here is also that it's a long game, especially when it's something that's custom and crafted for an individual, whether it's commercial or residential, that this is a long game. What you were doing is building something that was going to grow over time. And although it's been very successful, we're talking about 10 years of doing things, trying things, failing, succeeding to see what actually worked.
And I'm still trying and still building. I'm still learning and working on building those relationships.
Yeah. Thank you for being honest about that. We can often hear these stories and being like, okay, well, in 10 years, it'll all be great. Annie said 10 years, so 10 years is all I need. Did you ever imagine that you would be starting an entrepreneurial endeavor later in life?
I think I did. I think
You
maybe is the answer. I remember going to, when I worked at Maharam and I was a textile designer, they sent us to a show in Chicago. It was the biggest trade show called NeoCon. And I was walking that show and I saw Luna Textiles booth. And Anna Hernandez was the design director and owner of Luna Textiles. And she was a goddess to me. I loved her designs, her creative force in the industry, young Bay Area. I mean, I thought, I want to be her, or at least work for her someday. I want to be that. And now I kind of think, I mean, it's not textiles, but I'm sort of doing that. I'm pinching myself a little bit because I'm in the Bay Area. I'm designing my own creative patterns. I'm running a company and I'm doing what I love. So
You did it.
it's exciting.
It is exciting. And it's cool that you have that memory, that there was something, a little seed that was planted early on, and that you can hearken back to that both as a point of reference, but also to realize that there was something in you that was sparked by that, right? What would it be to have my own thing?
Yeah, it was a dream.
I love it.
Hard to imagine because you, and I tell my kids this, you need to start at the bottom and work hard, and you learn it every single step.
There's some new statistic about Gen Zers in particular, and it's like 60% of them want to be entrepreneurs. And that's great, but go work for somebody first. Go get some experience first. You will be better for it. And that doesn't mean that there aren't stories of people who are having great success at a very young age, but it's rare at any age. As an entrepreneur, the success rate is tough. So to get that experience is important, which is why it's so amazing to see women who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s starting something new, because we do come with all this experience. And you're case in point. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. Before we let you go, I want to go through our Fast Five real quick. So what is a daily practice for you, Annie, that keeps you grounded?
Well, I need to sweat a little bit every day. I think I need that physical release. So I am very competitive too. I like to play tennis or swim, and I'm competing with myself.
Yeah.
For me, that's what keeps me grounded, because it puts my head in another place physically and mentally. So,
did you ever get into the pickleball thing?
I haven't tried pickleball yet, but
yeah, you're committed to tennis.
You're committed. I'm committed.
That's awesome. I haven't tried pickleball either. Probably one of the few people that I know next to you.
But, so both of us.
Yes, both of us. And what are you currently reading?
I just finished Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan.
Mm-hmm.
Really good.
It was good?
It was good. And I am about to start The Covenant of Water.
Oh.
So I read Cutting for Stone, and it's probably one of my favorite books ever. So
okay.
This is my summer read.
I think that is a good summer read, because
it's daunting.
Yes, it's a big one. It's a big one. And then what's one piece of advice that you can share with our listeners who might be considering a new venture?
I would say go for it, because what do you have to lose? And you don't want to have regret, and you might as well try. You have nothing to lose. The worst thing that can happen is that you fail. And it's not like you snap your fingers and you're a success. You have to try, and it takes time. So I say go for it.
And what is it about this particular season that you're loving? Like, what is it offering you or affording you in a way that's different from other stages of life?
I think I'm just appreciative of my ability to put things in perspective. I love seeing my adult children launch into life. That's giving me tremendous satisfaction. I feel like that's the most important job I had, was raising my 3 kids, and it makes me feel very successful to see them thrive. So I'd say that's what I'm appreciating the most right now.
My 3rd one is still at home. I've launched 2, but I still have 1 at home. So I'm getting there.
Yeah.
What is it that modern metal has done to liberate you, both as a founder of a company, but also as a woman, as Annie? How is this endeavor, this venture, liberated you?
Well, I go back to the no regret, because I feel like, I mean, even if I were to stop right now, I just have no regret. I'm so excited that I have been able to sort of make my mark. I mean, my metal pieces, I can drive to Menlo Park and I can see a building covered in my design that I remember drawing by hand. And it's such a rewarding, satisfying feeling. So I feel very rewarded in that way and liberated that I got to break out of the hierarchy of the job world and sort of do my own thing. It was like creative liberation too. I get to do whatever I want. Even though, of course, I'm listening to customers and restrained in that way, I still get to kind of be my own boss in that respect. And as a woman, it's empowering. It feels good.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for sharing your story. I suspect that there are going to be some listeners who are wondering how they can get their hands on some modern metal products. Most of us are not going to have a commercial project for you. So if we have some things in our own home that need fixing, adorning, can we go to modernmetal.com?
Yes, you can email us at modmetaldesigns.com. That's the website. Okay. And the best thing I say for homeowners, because we usually take just larger homeowner projects, but this line of the ready-made grills is really great because it's affordable and you can paint them and most homes can use them.
Okay. Annie, thanks again for joining us. It was great to have you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this and I'm inspired by what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. And Liberty listeners, thanks for hanging out with Annie and with me, and we will talk to you guys next week. Bye for now. Liberty Road is broadcast on all platforms: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcast, and more. If you like what you've heard, please follow, rate, and review Liberty Road on Apple Podcast and Spotify. It helps us to know if these episodes are inspiring and equipping you to move into your middle third with intention. Liberty Road is created by executive producer Netta Jones, supervising producer Elizabeth Wyndham, producer Julia Wyndham, and music by Jack Jones.
Make this new school year an opportunity for your kids to learn important life skills with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely, while parents keep an eye on kids' money habits. Greenlight also helps families get into their fall routine with a chores feature that lets parents assign chores and pay kids allowance when they check them off. Get your first month free at greenlight.com/listen. Greenlight.com/listen.